Hi everyone. In this video, we will present the Solow-Swan model, named after Robert Solow and Trevor Swan. So this model explains long-run economic growth in a neoclassical framework. So to clarify terms here, a neoclassical framework simply means an economy that is populated with rational and maximizing agents. So they could be, say, firms or consumers or workers, and where prices are driven by supply and demand. So these assumptions are fundamental for most economic models. So the main ingredient in the Solow-Swan model is the capital accumulation, and we also introduce population growth and technological progress. So we say that capital accumulation is endogenous. By this, we mean that it is endogenous because it's something that we want to explain within the model. It's something that we care about. In contrast, we are going to add population growth and technological progress, but we say that they are actually exogenous. So it just means that they come from outside the model and we don't really care about what causes them. We just postulate that they each grow at a certain rate each period without having to say why. Finally, another exogenous variable that will be important is the savings rate. The savings is the fraction of the output that the agents or the citizens or the consumers choose to save in the model, which allows them actually to invest and produce more capital. So the Solow-Swan model is the backbone of growth theory. It's the starting point of many others, more complete growth models. So for instance, the Ramsey-Kasman model makes savings decision endogenous. Also, the Arrow, Usuwa, and Sidorowski model make technological progress endogenous. And also, Paul Romer has made human capital investment decision endogenous. So he actually got the Nobel Prize in 2018 for this work, along with his work for environmental models. Finally, the Solow-Swan model is even a starting point for the study of short-term business cycle fluctuations, even though it's actually meant to describe long-term trends. So you can really see how fundamental it is. So to make it easier to understand, I have decided to start with a simple version of the model with only capital accumulation, and then to go on to introduce only population growth, and then only technological growth. So we start with the Solow-Swan model with only capital accumulation. It is, of course, a fundamental variable to understand if we want to understand growth. So it played a central role in the Industrial Revolution with the steam engines, plants, and vehicle, and its accumulation underlies many of the Kaldor facts. So to clarify, by capital, we mean any object that can be even so tangible or intangible that people can use to gain production or gain revenue. So countries who started accumulating capital became vastly wealthy compared to others. As you can see on the graph, it really looks like countries who do have lots of capital are also the ones where workers produce the most. So is that the secret to growth? For developing countries, would just starting to accumulate a very large quantity of capital be the secret to catch up to rich countries? So before continuing, I invite you to pause the video and think about this for a second, and think about the economic mechanisms that might help you explain this or understand this phenomenon. So this plot is similar to the previous one, although we now look at changes over time. Did country which invested more over the period 1975-2009 actually gain more in terms of GDP per capita, If that were also the case, then it would really look like capital is the key to growth. So the relation does look slightly positive, but quite weak. Moreover, it doesn't look like most rich countries invested a lot. They are all bunched together in the center, and at about 20% of their GDP on average. So what's actually going on there? Is capital important or not? So it's a very multifaceted problem. And with problems like this, a good thing to do is to step back and try to frame the problem in simpler terms to gain some intuition. So this is what good researchers do. They don't really know the answers right away, but they're very good at inventing useful abstractions. So here's my own proposal. So let's imagine that capital is potato plants and the production is potatoes. So what can you do with your potatoes? You can either eat them, that's consumption, or you can use a fraction of them and plant them so that in the next years you get new potato plants and you're able to have new potatoes. So that's reinvestments. So the question is, can I plant a very large field to have a huge amount of potatoes? So in that very simple toy model, then the answer is obviously no. Why? Well, because I'm by myself. So let's imagine I don't have many tools. So I can't cultivate successfully a huge amount of potatoes in my fields because some of them are just not going to survive because of pests or the sun or whatever. And to replace them, I would have to use most of the potatoes I gain every year just to plant them and keep up with my huge field. I just don't have enough time to care for them. So it really looks like I can't have an infinite amount of potatoes. There is some optimal amount of plants. If I have too little, then yeah, I could maybe plant more and have more. But if I have too much, then I will just lose them and waste them. So what's the solution for me? How can I be richer? How can I eat more? If we exclude trade or other factors. Well, one thing that farmers used to do is to have many children so they could help them to work on the farm. That this would allow us to cultivate more. But of course, this also means more mouths to feed. So if we don't care about total production, but we care about being rich, well, it's not necessarily a step in the right direction. And actually, each new child that is born would necessitate for us to plant that year more potato plants just to feed that new person. So in fact, population growth may even be less good for if we wanted to eat a lot. So there is actually one good permanent way to raise my standards of living on my farm. What is it? Think about it. Yes, it's better technology. So it's better tools. It's to have a tractor. So there it is. That's in a nutshell the secret behind the Solow model. So I basically spoiled the answer at the end. Of course, now what we're going to do is formalize the model in the following slides.